Well, I had mentioned earlier about how the role of Marie really started to change and shift once I cast Casey, because she gave me a face and an energy to her. And because I knew then I could really embrace the dance side of it. Many times it's hard if you see somebody as a dancer and then you have actors who move, something we all try to be triple threats, but there is a difference between an actor who moves and a dancer. And to me, Marie was always a dancer. A dancer. It's a very major difference. You know this. So that actually happened for many of the characters. For instance, the role of Quentin, before auditions, did not have any lines. He was just a person. He was a body, and he wasn't a fully formed person. MFA actor Anthony DePoto came in his audition and gave the monologue that he did completely blew me away and changed my perception about what that character could be. And in that moment, his whole character came to fruition. It never happened before. Very similar things happened with the character of Kelly, which is played by Alex Coe. I had seen him one way, and Alex Coe came in with a totally different way, and it turns out he was right. And also with the dynamic of the Dr. Pearson and Nori Pearson, older sister and father. I saw the dynamic one way, which, to be honest, was very pulled from life. But the way that Michael James, who was MFA director, and Jess Doherty, who was an actor, BA actor in the program, the way they're doing it is so much more authentic that it makes more sense in the script. So when I cast these specific people, the script really started to change because I had faces and I had specific energies and I had actors who I knew would take the thoughtful approach. So when we got into workshops, it got into our first workshop. What we did was a full read through of the script I had, this epically long script. When we read it the first time, it was like 2.5 hours. Yeah, it was 2.5 hours, and there were 3 scenes not written yet, and we didn't take into account the half an hour of movement. So we're looking at like a show that's longer than South Pacific here. A little silly. So what we did after that first read-through was debate over what we thought happened on... The whole play starts with a date between Marie and Quentin. And we got into this whole debate about what happened on that date. And so many things came out as far as what people's perception of gender roles were, what people's perception of sexual assault was versus being a doormat versus all these other things. And it was so fascinating to see how differently, in our case, the men in the room saw things versus how the women in the room saw things, and how it'd be opposite than what you thought it would be. The men, in many ways, were more black and white than the women were, as far as what was right and what was wrong. And there was one comment that was made that by one of the cast members, again, protecting the privacy of our ensemble. One of the cast members made a comment about, if Marie had been sexually assaulted, she wouldn't be functioning. So she obviously wasn't sexually assaulted. At which point, one of the other female ensemble members just started laughing at him and said, if every woman that you knew who was sexually assaulted stopped functioning, you would know 50% less women. And it was just really, and that very much the men in the room they didn't realize that they knew anybody. And being a woman, we all started counting how many people we knew. It was very interesting. And that day is, I think, the day that conversation is when the ensemble formed. Very much. So from there, we started looking into the actual relationships. I'm going to turn it over to Casey and talk about the first time we sat down with the 3 Pearsons. They have many dinner scenes, and the dynamic between the 3 of them is fun. So what was it like finding the dynamic of the Pearsons in the workshops?
Well, again, it was a lot of debate and behind the scenes type of relationships, and I think it was pretty easy to find my relationship with my father, or Marie's relationship with her father, because it was established that she didn't really have a voice a lot, and people did things for her, and she was just trying to keep people happy. But I think what was important was to find the relationship between Nori and her father, because because they're so the same. They're so much the same that it like last night's rehearsal, we were trying to find their power struggle, who had the power when, and we've kind of determined that they butt heads a lot.
Right.
And there was another scenario where we were trying to find out the relationship between Dr. Pearson, and Dean Heron, and her relationship to Marie, and that was interesting because Marie's mother passed, or we'll keep it at that, and the Dean Perrin came in as Marie's motherly role in some ways. And then that was interesting because then you had to find the connection between Dr. Pearson and Perrin, and how they felt about her slightly coming into my life.
That's a really good point. When we got into those debates about when did Dean Perrin come in, what happened to your mom, what happened with him, why did he let Dean Perrin come in, it changed the end of the play.
Yep. Completely.
The very last thing that we figured out in the workshop after we did our final read-through was, how does this play end?
Yes.
I knew what the end of her story was because that's the big idea was I knew Marie's story. But the other 6 people,
yes.
I came in to our workshops going, I don't know. Help me. What do we think happened? What feels right? Again, returning to, are we telling the right story here? So when we got into those relationships about what happened, that's how we finally found the final scene of the play. Mm-hmm. And from there, when we got into blocking, because we are all so aware of the backstory of everything, and because of how tentative, to me the story is more important than the dialogue. Of course, that's a director's approach to writing, but to me the story is more important. Furthermore, the transitions, what we think of transitions, the movement, Marie's internal story is told through dance. Kelly's story is told through music. Nori is a poet, a spoken word poet, who speaks her mind through the poetry, and Dr. Pearson and Dean Perrin are professors of sociology, so they give us lectures. So we're getting these different perspectives on the same topic of sexuality from as many different perspectives as we can have. So to me, when we've been creating those aspects, and we've been continually going back to, are we telling the right story here? Because we know everybody so well, because we took time in workshop, when we stage a scene like last night, when we stage a scene, we go, it doesn't feel right. Is it the movement or is it the dialogue? And then we change the movement first. Okay, that didn't work. Then it's the dialogue. Okay, what needs to be shifted here? So it's interesting because instead of approaching script, how do I bring a person to the script, we approached this outline and said, who are these people? And then these people came to the script. And then these people made the story. And then we make the rest of it go around it. So it's interesting, really, really organic story in a way of telling it.